We are the CAT8, also known as the Community Assistance Team 8.
Is a group of Jain individuals and professionals
who are assisting the community at large
during the COVID-19 crisis.
CAT8 began just before the COVID-19 crisis,
when it held a can challenge,
where children created iconic monuments
using cans of food,
raised some 3 tons of canned foods,
enough supply for 4 months,
for the Watford Food Bank,
run by the Trussell Trust.
during the COVID-19 crisis.
CAT8 is helping the elderly, the vulnerable,
those in isolation and key workers.
With meals, essential shopping,
help with medicine collection,
and someone to talk to
whilst coping with isolation.
CAT8 has lined up
a series of webinars.
In addition, we have created a helpline
for individuals and businesses
that need guidance
on the various government schemes.
And the topics of the webinars.
CAT8 is working with
or supporting various organizations,
including Go Dharmic,
Sevate,
Navnath,
SCVP,
One Jain,
the Trussell Trust,
and working with many volunteers.
CAT8 is the newest network fiber,
connecting the community. Carry out that work, and we're very grateful to them. Okay, next slide, please. So today we're going to be talking about home extensions and renovations, and we think it's an excellent topic today in this current climate when people may now consider extending properties, renovating properties, rather than actually moving up and buying another property. Not only that, given the fact that a lot of people have been working from home, there may be a requirement to change the layout of the house, etc., to ensure that you can work very efficiently from home. Our speaker today is Selina Shah, who is an architect with Align Architects. Selina has been working in the field for over 10 years and specializes in planning approval for residential buildings, in extensions, new builds, and blocks of flats. Selina has dealt with planning applications all over London and Greater London, and she aims to deliver a clever, efficient design that makes the most from the space available. So without taking any more time, over to you, Selina.
Thank you, Renovations. Morning, everyone. Right, let me try and share this screen. Okay, can everyone see that all right? I hope so.
It's coming out fine, thank you.
Coming out fine? Great, okay. So good morning, everyone, and thank you to CAT8 for arranging tonight's seminar, this morning's seminar, sorry. And the topic is home extensions and renovations. So this topic is really good for us at the moment. So if you're thinking of any of these things, extensions or renovations, this talk is for you. Let's hope this goes okay. So I'm often asked to explain the process of extending or renovating a house. So this is a short seminar, and it will help you get an overview from the initial idea to the completed works, focusing on the important steps you need to take before you start the building work. And it's split into 3 sections. So the first section is here, design. The proposed changes to your property in terms of external appearance, internal layout, extending the floor area, moving services and putting in new kitchens and bathrooms. And then we'll look at planning permissions, So these would be the applications that you need to make to the local authority, so your council, to get the permission to build. And then finally, we'll be looking at building regulations. So you'll need building regulations approvals. So an application or a notice to prove that you will meet the regulations on the quality of the build. So now that we're in lockdown, I've noticed a big surge in demand for home improvements. And people are spending all of their time in their houses and noticing that their space is not functioning as well as it could. Many people have started working from home and can see themselves doing more of this in the future. They might need a home office, but they don't have a suitable one. So people are thinking about how they want to live their lives and prioritizing their friends and family. So it's the perfect time to think about making some changes. And if you get the design and the planning applications done now, you could have your renovation done by Christmas, when hopefully your whole family will be together again. Especially if you're thinking about a larger project, it's best to get the design and permissions in place now, whilst you have the time, so that you can start construction when it's most convenient to you, whenever that might be. We're not quite sure at the moment, are we? So this is the first part of the talk, and it's design. In this section, we'll look at what goes into creating a design. There are various elements that need to be considered. So light, space, services. So that's pipe work for gas and electricity, water, that kind of thing. And the materials that you might need to use. So, you know, your brick or your render and your internal materials such as, you know, wood flooring, plasterboard for paint, that kind of thing. And obviously your specific aims and requirements. And these all go into drawings. And the drawings are produced to represent those designs. And they can be simple for planning, just showing walls, doors and windows. Or they can be more detailed, showing light fittings, electrical points, pipework, mouldings, that kind of thing. So before any of that, the first thing to do is ask yourself, what do you want from your renovation? Do you want to add financial value to your house? And as you can see in this image here, a renovation can be really appealing to a future buyer. Do you want a better social space for your family to enjoy together? And nowadays it's often the kitchen, as you can see with this lovely kitchen island design. Do you want more bedrooms for a young and growing family, but on a tight budget? Now, although, unless your kids are very well trained, the bedroom may not end up looking as tidy as this image. Do you want somewhere to entertain and have parties? Do you need a bedroom and bathroom with step-free access for an elderly relative? Now, I know a lot of us will relate to this problem. I certainly did with my late grandma. So we ended up creating her ground floor facilities that could accommodate her wheelchair. And we extended the house by 6 meters to create a big seating area and kitchen for our big family. The bathroom was large enough for her wheelchair, and I added grab rails and a built-in seat in the shower. I put in plenty of storage and a sofa next to her bed for carers or visitors, as you can see in this image. And I also managed to get some discounts from the council for the works. So prioritising your wants will help your architect design the right kind of renovation, because it's not always best to just stick a box onto the back of your house. For example, we've all seen the standard white plastic conservatory. They may be cheaper to install, but are they really functional? They can be too hot in the summer, too cold in the winter, and the plastic glass can become cloudy and mouldy over time. They can block out sunlight from the rest of your house, as you can see here. These kinds of extensions are so unusable that they usually end up as storage or for drying laundry. You can see there's a washing line put up in this one. And the room behind it now can get very little light, and it's probably the main living room or kitchen, so really unusable. On the other hand, a good extension will add to your home. It can add value when you come to sell. It can enlarge your living space, your kitchen or your dining space. And it can create a very important home office, which you might need at the moment, or a new bedroom. But more importantly, these kind of new spaces can provide more natural light, can lift up the mood, and can even encourage children to spend more time in the family space. I'll now explain a little bit about getting an architect in, so the process of getting an architect in. The first thing they'll do is to come and visit your home to assess the space, and they'll look at the direction of the sun and the way it hits the different rooms around the house. They'll look at the size of your garden and the loft, and they'll note down where the sewer pipes run, where the manhole access is, and they'll listen carefully to your wants and concerns. They'll not just draw up a box stuck on the back of your house. So all of this information that you give them will help your architect guide you into making the best decision for your extension. So if you have south-facing windows, for example, they can explain the best position and style of window to let in sunlight without creating a hothouse. If you have small children, they might suggest some clever storage ideas, like in this image. Child-friendly room layouts so that you can keep an eye on toddlers whilst cooking in the kitchen. They can also look at your existing water drainage and suggest the position of new kitchens or downstairs loos to minimise the cost of extra pipes. So the way that they're positioned might minimise that cost. And they'll look at roof design to make sure that rainwater drains in the correct direction and the aesthetic complements the existing house style. If you're spending money on extending a home, it's vital to get the most out of it. The last thing you want is to create something that doesn't work or will put off buyers when you come to sell the place. So now let's move on to the next phase. So planning permissions, phase 2. And this section will cover the types of application you might need, what goes into the application, which projects don't need permission, why it benefits you to get prior approval, the length of time for the application process, and the cost of the application. Now, during the design process, your architect will be thinking about what the council will allow you to build and which applications are most suitable. You should also check your deeds for restrictive covenants placed on your property, usually by the developers. And these are often written into the conditions of the original planning permission, such as the right of way or restricting any extension works. So technically, I mean, you could ask your local authority for whatever house changes you want. You could ask for a 15-metre rear extension or a tower to be added to the front of your house, like in this image. But your architect will be able to tell you which of those designs is likely to get permission and which route you should take for the best chances of success. And from there, you can make a more informed decision about which design to try for. Each local council will be guided by the national laws, but they'll also have what is called the local plan. The local plan sets out their own aims and objectives, but beware, the planning laws can be interpreted a little differently by each council, and they'll have their own local ideas about what's right for the local neighbourhood. So at time of recording, there are dozens of different applications available, but usually your home renovations will need one of these 3. So in this section, we'll cover householder planning permissions, lawful development certificates, and larger home extensions. And your property will probably need one of these 3. And each of these applications requires different documents alongside the forms, which could include a set of drawings showing the house and grounds as it stands currently, a set of drawings showing the house and grounds as you propose to change it, a location plan, showing the house in its surroundings, a design and access statement explaining how the house will meet the regulations, a community infrastructure levy form, and depending on the scale of the proposed development, the council could also ask for other reports, but most small domestic works do not require this. And the drawings are known as planning drawings, and they'll show a plan view looking down as if the house has been cut through at chest height. This is an example here that I've put on the screen. And elevation views, looking at the outside facade of the house as if seen from the street or the garden. And sometimes they could ask for section views for a residential property, as if the house has been sliced from roof to ground like a cake. Although this is generally only used if you have an unusual situation like a half basement or a sloping site. Remember, some smaller projects do not require official planning permission from the local authority. This includes new kitchens, new driveways, low-level decking, and replacement windows, plus some extensions and conversions within restrictions regarding size, height, building materials. And these restrictions depend on whether your house is detached or terraced, how close you are to the boundary, and how big your overall grounds are. And they also change or can be totally removed depending on whether you're in an area of special historic interest or a special zoning area. So most of you are probably living in a house, so I'll touch on some of the main rules for permitted development for house extensions, which is what this is called. So, permitted development. Extensions must be constructed in similar materials to the existing house. So, for example, a brick house can have a brick extension. Detached houses are allowed a single-storey rear extension of 4 metres and a double storey of 3 metres. Semi-detached and terraced houses are allowed a single-storey rear extension of 3 metres and sometimes a double storey of 3 metres, but that depends on the situation. Roof ridges cannot be higher than 4 metres and roof eaves cannot be higher than 3 metres if it's 2 metres away from the boundary. So that gets a little bit complicated. 2-storey extensions cannot be closer than 7 metres to the rear boundary. So as you can see in this image, that could be a sloping site, but you have to measure to the rear boundary. And side extensions must be single-storey and no wider than half the width of the existing house. Extensions cannot cover more than half the existing curtilage, and the curtilage is the area of the ground surrounding the house, so that's including your front gardens, your parking spaces, anything that belongs to the house. And front extensions are not allowed, except for a porch of under 3 metres, under 3 metres squared. So, and that's only if it's more than 2 metres away from all of the boundaries of the house. Now, if your works do fall under permitted development, you can opt to get a lawful development certificate from the local council. It's not a legal requirement, but it's very worthwhile to obtain before you start building. It essentially proves to your local council and future buyers of your property that the project was legal at the point of construction. It'll give you peace of mind before spending any money on construction, especially because the law surrounding planning is changing and updating all the time. By the time you want to sell, it may be important to show that you have a lawful extension. It's also useful to check that the works are lawful before you even start building, because remember, if the council deem it unlawful, they have the right to stop your construction works and totally demolish finished works. Now, recently, the government have been allowing what's known as a larger home extension. And this allows an 8-metre single-storey rear extension for a detached house and a 6-metre single-storey rear extension for a semi-detached or a terraced house. The application process is similar, but the local authority will serve a notice on your immediate neighbours, usually to the left and right of you. And they'll raise objections within 21 days. If the neighbours raise objections within 21 days, the proposal will require prior approval. And the council will have 42 days to inform you whether the scheme requires prior approval and whether it's granted or not. So if you want an extension that's larger or more daring, it can be a smart tactic to ask for a scheme that maximises permitted development rights before asking for an even bigger scheme. This can help persuade your local authority, because if you don't get permission for this, you'll probably be building that anyway. Another tactic is to ask for something a little larger than you'd actually want at first, so you can negotiate down to your desired project during the council's decision-making period. So these are tactics you could use. It's also a good idea to look around your neighbourhood to see what else has been constructed. Your architect can help you find the details and reference numbers and present them to the council in a document to support your application. Now, this document might also put forward some arguments to tackle any of the council's concerns and show that you're in compliance with the regulations. It usually takes around 3 to 4 weeks to produce the information for the planning application for a simple, small residential property. And once submitted to the local authority, it takes 8 to 10 weeks for the decision to be made. Now, that's if the council are on time, and they aren't always on time, but for most of the projects, 8 to 10 weeks is the usual time. And after the application has been validated by the council, they'll likely pin up a notice outside your property, like this one in the image, asking for comments from your local community. They may also contact your immediate neighbours by letter to ask if they have any objections. And these comments will inform whether the local council make a decision themselves or they discuss your application in a public forum. And these are held regularly, usually once a month in the evening, and they're open for anyone to attend. So during the session, the public are invited to speak in person, to support or object to the applications. Now, it can be an anxious wait for your application's decision. And during this time, your architect will liaise with the case officer and possibly negotiate changes to the scheme to maximise the likelihood of permission being granted. And once they reach a decision, the council I mean, you should receive a letter outlining any conditions, such as building in accordance with the submitted drawings. Now, the fees. The fee to the council for an application is currently £206 for a householder planning permission, £103 for a lawful development certificate, and £96 for a larger home extension. So these are correct at this time. Obviously they do change, so just make sure that you check when you're actually making the application. They've recently also started charging £25 for the actual admin cost. So step 3, we'll talk about building regulations approvals. Now, this is the last section in my talk. And once you have your planning permissions in place, you must tackle this section, this building control. So this section will cover what exactly is building control. which project needs sign-off, which types of application, other steps and applications at this stage, party wall, and how to find and appoint a builder. While planning permission is concerned with the outward appearance of the building, so its size and the materials that you might use, so bricks, for example, or render, the building control looks at the quality of the construction. So that's including structure, fire safety, toxic substances, and the list goes on. Don't worry, I won't read out the entire list, but the list goes on, trust me. You need building regulations approvals for a wide variety of works, from replacing doors and windows to installing a new bathroom. So pretty much most works that you'll come across will need building approval. And there are various ways to deal with building regulations approvals. And for standard extensions, it's very common to use a building notice. This essentially asks the council to trust that you will comply with all the building regulations, and the council will make inspections at various points during the construction to ensure that you have the correct construction methods and materials. And some of the things they'll look out for are the depth of the foundations, the thickness of the insulation used, so that's both in the walls and the floor and actually the roof as well. Correct waterproofing, so especially the damp proof course, which runs in your walls right at the bottom to stop the damp from rising and to stop water from ingressing. And fire safety, including escape routes and fire alarms, very important. So you can see these are really important issues, and the council are really, they're really concerned with this, and they do make inspections. So you definitely need to get building control. Now, most people put their trust in the builder to have the appropriate experience and knowledge. And this is one reason it is vital to get the right builder. And I'll be speaking more about that in a minute. If you're building something larger or more unusual, you should get a more robust type of approval. And this can be done by demonstrating to the council in more detail what you're going to be building via a set of drawings and documents, the full plans building control. It'll detail how you overcome all of the concerns set out by building control. But as I mentioned, most people decide to get a building notice for a small project like a small extension. And this is because of the cheaper cost and the shorter notice period. You may only need to pay around £300 to £800 for this. And you can start construction a few days after submitting the forms to the council. Now at this point, there will be some other steps depending on your property, your neighbourhood and your local council. So as well as the building control, you will have to deal with party wall agreements and an engineer for any structural calculations. You may also need approvals from your local water authority, and for London this would be Thames Water. There are also various other reports that the council may request, a flood risk assessment, other ecology reports, a tree report, so especially if you have trees with a tree protection order, that kind of thing. Which may apply to you. So you need to make sure that you cover all of those things. And beware that some of those will require extra cost. Now, a little about party walls. So this is quite important. The Party Wall Act was put into place to prevent disputes in relation to shared boundary walls and fences. So for example, a garden fence that separates neighbouring properties, or a terraced house that shares a wall with its neighbour. You must inform your neighbour of any works carried out on or around the boundary at least 2 months before you start work. And you do this by serving a party wall notice, which can be as simple as a letter sent out to each neighbour, but you need to make sure that that letter contains the right information. So you have to get the the correct professional advice for this. Now, the best case scenario is that the neighbour is fine with your proposed works and returns the letter signed and dated. But if this isn't the case, you're legally bound to appoint an impartial party wall surveyor to inspect the properties and produce a party wall award. Now, on to builders. It is important to understand that the best way to a successful home renovation is to appoint a good builder. A good builder will have plenty of experience, be competent, and be reliable. Finding one, on the other hand, is often easier said than done. Remember, there's no industry-wide qualification or register for builders, like there is for other people in the construction industry, such as architects, engineers, surveyors. Anyone can call themselves a builder and set up a construction company, so you have to be careful. The best way of finding a builder is through recommendations. So if your friends or family have recently carried out some home renovations, get the name and contact of their builder and ask them if they were happy with the results. You may also want to take a walk around your local neighbourhood, your local area, and if you spot a building project near completion, note down the address and you can see if you can contact the owners for a chat and a look around the site. Now, whether you can find a builder through recommendations or not, it's always best to see some of their previous work, either under construction or a finished project. Now, you should get 3 quotes from different companies and read through them very carefully. You can show the builders the planning drawings produced for their planning purposes, so they can understand roughly what you want. So obviously, these planning drawings can be used not just for planning, but to show your builder what exactly you want, because it's sometimes quite hard to describe, in person. And it's quite good to actually just show them the planning drawings and send it to them, so you've got a record of what you want. And the key things to ask for are, how long will they take? And this is known as the program. So this is really important. So you need to find out what they think, how long they think the project will take, and get them to write it down. And when can they start the work? So you want here the exact date, get that written down. When they want each payment and how you will be paying. Now, this is the balance between ensuring that you don't part with all of your money at once, but understanding that the building will have some large upfront costs, such as buying materials. So what's included in the quote? Are you buying the kitchen and the bathroom suites, the light fixtures, the tiles, or are they buying them? You need to make that clear from the off, so you really understand each other. The more detail that you can pin down now, the less risk of those unknown costs adding up. Now, if you want a good finish, like in this image, it's best to make as many decisions as possible before the work starts. So for peace of mind and to ensure a quality aesthetic, your architect can create a set of drawings of details to detail fixtures, fittings, and materials. And these are known as tender drawings and construction drawings. And this will result in fewer changes and decisions on site, and therefore reduce expensive construction delays. Now, this is the key to keeping your building costs down. Over the course of the build, you should be visiting the site and checking the progress as much as possible. So keep regular and open communication with the builder so you can catch any issues earlier. And obviously, if you employ an architect to do this for you, and they will be there during the build, to oversee and check on the site regularly. So you don't have to necessarily do this. But if you don't employ one, it's best to check regularly, because you never know what's going to happen. I'm sure you'll be excited enough to check regularly anyway. So once the works have almost been completed, be sure to get your building completion certificate from your local council. Now this is really important. So keep this safely filed away, as you will need it when you sell your property. So now that you've got a good overview of the building process, from your very first idea to the finished product, as you can see, there are plenty of regulations involved, but with some good planning, you can navigate your way through. And as always, please do seek professional advice where appropriate and check whether the people you hire have the right qualifications. And remember, if you decide to hire a draftsperson rather than an architect, they will not be governed by or accountable to any national body. So just be aware of that. And finally, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them here, or you can contact me directly via my website, Instagram, email, or phone. Thank you for your time.
If you stop sharing, please, Selina.
Yep.
Thank you.